the solar is working today.
It is.
Beautiful day.
And this is Writer's Voices with Monica and Caroline. I'm your host, Monica Hadley. Yeah, got to remember my name. And with me is my co-host and mother, Caroline Kilborn, who was telling me a story at lunch that made me think maybe her memory was failing, but I guess it's mine. Actually, her memory is just fine.
Pretty good. Well, at times. But I found this birthday card, this little birthday card, handmade, that on my dresser this morning, and I don't remember. I don't know where it came from. I mean, I knew I had it years ago, but there it was.
So someone took it and put it back.
Yeah, I guess so.
and just so you know, she lives alone.
Right. I'm not sure if I live alone anymore.
Okay. Well, she thought she lived alone.
Oh, gosh.
Remember the Littles?
Yes.
Yes. So maybe it was the Littles.
Maybe it was.
That was a book from my childhood. So who do we have on as our guest for Writer's Voices today, Mom?
Today we have the author of An Acting Revolution, the Warner Loughlin Technique. And Warner Loughlin is the person we're having. And she has been a teacher for over 20 years and a coach to Oscar, Emmy, Golden Globe, Tony, and Grammy winners and nominees. And she studied contemporary literature and Shakespeare at Oxford University and received her Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She now lives in Los Angeles, California with her family. And this is quite an interesting book. I mean, welcome. It's full of so many things. You just, oh my God.
Welcome to Writer's Voices, Warner.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And about that birthday card, did somebody re-gift that card that your mother's talking about?
Well, no, it had not been used.
Oh, okay.
And she
just clearing that up. Yeah, but I'm happy to be here.
She had just bought it to give to someone, and then
never did.
And
oh, that's great.
Suddenly, it just showed up.
I don't know.
So, Warner, tell us, how did you become an acting coach to the stars?
Well, I was first an actress myself. You hear so many times people say people who teach can't do, which I think that's just kind of a silly thing when it comes to acting, because if you've never done it, I don't know how you would actually teach it. So I became a coach quite by accident, really, when I was into my acting career and having a wonderful, marvelous time. A friend of mine asked me to coach one of his clients. He was a talent manager. And I replied, well, I'm not a coach. I'm an actress. I don't know, maybe I can help him, but I do kind of an odd technique. It's kind of a technique that that nobody I know uses. I made it up myself, so I don't know. And I ended up coaching his client, and this client ended up getting a job. And then suddenly people started calling me and saying, hey, will you help me with this audition? Will you help me with this role? And that's really how it all began.
And did you continue acting as well?
I did for a little while until I had to really come to the realization that I loved teaching it more than I loved actually doing it.
Ah.
Kind of odd. I mean, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, if you'd said 30 years ago, oh, you're going to be an acting coach, I would have said, what? What pill are you taking? It just would never have crossed my mind, yeah.
But now just think of the people that you've helped and had made them a success. I mean, that's got to be really rewarding.
It just makes me overjoyed to see them have success like that. I always say, you be the balloon and I'll hold the string. Mm-hmm. It just makes me happy to see them fly. I don't know why.
Well, I think I can understand that.
Also, I can think that there might be some advantages to not being the one in the public eye. Just saying.
And I am by nature just a bit shy. It worked out nicely. I get to act, people go, don't you miss it? And I'm like, not at all. I do it all day long. I get to be an 80-year-old man. I get to be a 14-year-old girl. As I'm working with other actors, I take on the other role in reading and coaching of them. So yeah, no, I do it all day long, and
So
it's a nice
it
thing.
really, your own acting, maybe you've gotten, like you say, more opportunity to explore your own ability to act by being a coach.
It definitely heightens your ability to do it, for sure.
Wow. So what made you decide to put your technique into a book?
Because I see so many out there, and I won't name names, but we all kind of know some of them, I think, that seem to be tortured souls for their art.
Mm.
And I just wanted to show people that there is another way that you can access your emotions. There is another way that you can do it psychologically, safely, and extremely effectively, maybe even more effectively than using your own tragedies. The schools of thought out there that have been around for 100 years or so ask that we go back into our own lives and we pull up all of this tragedy and heartache and heartbreak, and we use it in the moment of the scene. But it creates so much depression, and I think it's truly psychologically harmful, and I think that because I did that for years. It was the only way I had ever been taught. So there was a point in my life where I said, I cannot continue to act. If this is the way I'm going to access emotion, it was just remarkably painful.
So in addition to being very painful to try and like dredge up your own past traumas in order to express that emotion, are there other drawbacks to doing it that way?
There are. On set, you can get to that emotion maybe a take or two, maybe. Sometimes our bodies go, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel that again. And you'll just literally emotionally shut down. In theater, we only have to do that once a night, right? But on set, you have to do an emotion take after take after take after take. You have to repeat it. And using your own memories and using your own past tragedies, you'll desensitize yourself to it. So you're going to be good for maybe a take or two.
Mm.
Well, I would think it would be, I don't think I ever had to cry on stage.
Really?
No, I don't think so. It would be hard. I think it'd be hard.
Mom did some acting.
Well, with my technique, it's going to be quite easy for
Okay.
Mom acted in college. And
I love that.
And in community theater.
Yeah.
And
Started
in
in high
fact,
school,
she was in a theater class with, Gene Wilder, but he had a different name back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the University of Iowa.
I love that. And did you use substitution when you acted? Did they teach you that? Yeah.
They didn't teach us anything. We just sort of did our own thing. As I recall, we just kind of did our own thing. So,
Sure.
So some people think that, acting is just a talent. Either you have it or you don't.
I get asked a lot, hey, can anybody be an actor? And I think it does take a certain degree of willingness to be fearless. Mm. And some of us, might be suited for a different profession. I don't know. But I do think it takes that fearlessness and the ability to have empathy, sympathy for other people, willingness to be vulnerable in front of other people. I think those are some key things. And if you have that and you really have the passion to be an actor, because boy, does it take the passion, at least on a professional level, you have to really want to do it. But I think anyone who has those qualities can, if they work hard enough, can do it.
Well, you're going to spend your whole life in the acting field is one thing, but just doing it like in community theater or, now and then, that's another thing.
Exactly.
But if you jump into it both feet and that's your livelihood, then you really got to work at it. You
really, really do. And I love community theater and all those regional theaters too, because I always say actors truly are so blessed to be able to touch people's lives, names that they will never know, to either to teach somebody something or make them see an aspect of their lives they hadn't thought about or they might be struggling with even, or just to give them a moment of escape or joy, laughter. So I think it's a noble thing. I'm a little prejudiced that way, but
Well, and I agree.
Do you ever find people who come to Hollywood to be an actor and they have the passion to be an actor, but they really aren't any good?
I think if you come to LA, if you come here, I'm not sure that, well, I've seen it a time or two, but I've also seen a time or two where somebody has such passion for it and they worked so hard for it that they actually became a working actor.
Even though they may not have had the talent to begin with.
Talent is kind of it's kind of like trying to describe love.
Yeah, that's why I put it in air quotes, which of course you can't see. But
Exactly. But I've seen an actor or two, and I thought, wow, that's going to be a lot of work. And eventually they their nose to the grindstone and worked hard, and sure enough, didn't give up either. Persistence is the big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to Writers' Voices with Monica and Caroline, and our guest today is Warner Loughlin, the author of An Acting Revolution, the Warner Loughlin Technique. How widely dominant is the substitution method, the draw on your own past trauma method?
I think it's taught in most colleges, universities, and a heck of a lot of acting teachers out there, only because, Lee Strasberg was quite a famous teacher, and he developed what he called the method. And the method is, substituting your past tragedies for the moment at hand. The problem I find with that is that you can't be two places at one time. You can't be in your own personal life and be the character at the same time. So there is a momentary break in the character in order to, remember something in your own past.
Now, we talk about, the painful part of it, but do they use that same method for joy and happiness as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, your method is really getting inside the character's head.
It's all about the character, yes.
Yeah.
We get psychologically deep inside the character, and we actually, in our imaginations, live out the emotionally pertinent events that character lived through from the time they're tiny, like 4, 5, 6 years old. So when we start to actually approach the role, we know how they love, anger, hate, their joys, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, their crushed dreams, their how they love, why they love, who they love. We know so much about them that by the time we're ready to step in front of camera, there's really nothing that can throw you.
So it seems like this method is a lot more work in terms of advanced preparation.
When you first do this technique, it might feel like a lot. But once you really get it under your belt, just by doing it over and over again, you'll shock yourself at how quickly you'll get there. You just get used to it. It's like a muscle, any other muscle, your imagination is. So you'll be able to, do it very, very succinctly and very quickly once you get it, in your bloodstream there.
Wow. So what are some of the positive benefits of using the Warner Loughlin technique instead of doing other types of training?
You mean in life or
in life? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a part of the technique that we look at called base human emotion, and I've had so many people say, "Oh, geez, when I read that chapter, I realized not only what my base human emotion was, but I realized what my husband's base human emotion was, or my sister's, or my friend's was, and it taught me to be just a little bit more empathetic. It taught me to sympathize with them just a little more. I now understand them better and can deal with them better. That's one kind of byproduct of the technique.
Well, that's a big one, I would say, because so many times, we know somebody is hurting in some way or something, but we just don't know why, and we don't want to ask them, and so forth. And so maybe we can figure it out.
So do you feel like you apply this technique in your daily life and not just in your role as an actor?
I do. I'm so used to looking at behavior and asking why might that behavior occur. So it makes me a bit tolerant of bad behavior, probably, or others' behavior. I'm not quite as critical of other people, I think, perhaps because of that, yeah.
So you do use it to sort of analyze your own motivation for behavior.
I do. If we look at patterns of behavior, for instance, have you ever found yourself doing something over and over again, and you go, why do I keep doing this? The same outcome, right?
Right.
Those patterns of behavior are very indicative of something that may have happened in our childhood that's causing us to repeat those patterns, I always say it's repeat or repair. Like, we repeat that we've known since childhood, but we also seem to try to repair certain things as well.
Mm.
You look at those patterns and ask yourself, oh, why do I keep doing that? What in my past happened? What event might have occurred? What went on in my childhood that I'm having a reaction to, like, right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
So in a way, you could use this technique as a therapist.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah,
I'll bet you have. You bet. Yeah.
Wow.
Self-examination can be very difficult sometimes, but if you have a positive outcome to look forward to, it's not as bad.
So essentially, the Warner Loughlin technique goes from the behavior. Well, first you read through the script and look at your character and see, what are the things that are being told to you about that character by the writer. And then you go into how they're behaving, and then you work into, well, why are they behaving this way? Is that kind of the
That's exactly
summary?
It. Very nicely done. Very nicely said.
Thank you.
It goes really from left brain to right brain, very analytical, analytically looking at the behavior, and then kind of sliding over to the right side of the brain where we start to use our imaginations more and actually live the character's life out after we've assessed it over there in the left brain.
Now, is there any danger about if you use this technique and you really get to become this character that you kind of get stuck in that character?
The beauty of it is that we actually, as human beings, know what's make-believe and what's not. So I could go on set and do a really wretchedly evil character, and I could have just a cornucopia of emotions, and I can walk off set and just be me.
Mm.
I don't have to carry it around with me all the time. You should debrief, in other words, just kind of breathe the character out, get rid of that character, but your mind knows, oh, that's imagination.
So with method acting, is there more of a push to become the character?
The problem with method for me, after having used it in my early career, is that I would pull up, a past tragedy and use it in the moment, and it would stay with me, maybe even definitely through the next scene that was being shot, but not only that, but for that day, for that week, and sometimes for that month. It brings it back again. It makes it live again. And that's just not a good way to live your life, really.
Really? And
No.
does the Warner Loughlin technique make it easier to switch from filming a scene where you're, deeply troubled to filming a scene where there's joy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah.
You can switch back and forth quite easily.
Or
When you're on set, there's generally a lot of laughter and it's kind of like a big kind of raucous family sometimes. And you might have, grips over there sticking French fries up their nose, for example. Everybody's cutting up and laughing, and then you've got to go do a tragic scene. It also allows you the ability to switch from having a personal thought into the character's thought, and letting you take that journey of the scene and get to that emotional place quite quickly.
well, if you were having to play a really bad person, it would be nice if you didn't have to hang on to that, wouldn't it?
Indeed. It's great not to bring that home to your family.
Yeah, right.
To your friends.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Now, because this is Writers' Voices, how can writers use this technique to help develop a character?
Well, I work with quite a few screenwriters who have an idea for what they want their screenplay to be, but may somewhat struggle, and even novelists too, struggle with the tiny little nuances of a character. I mean, it makes sense. You've got an idea for a story, and you're passionate about it. But I think what really makes something pop is when you read about a character who's so wonderfully, beautifully unique, and their subsequent behavior is sometimes surprising and delightful and whatnot. So I teach writers the portion of the technique. Well, a lot of writers use the entire technique, but particularly base human emotion.
So do you have, there was a section, I think, from the book that applied to writers that you would like to read?
I could read the base human emotion section
Great.
of the book. I might skip
Awesome.
around a bit.
Okay.
Some of it applies to the scene that I have included in the book that is the example to help actors. But I will happily read you some of the base human emotion if you like.
Of course.
Okay, the base human emotion is the overwhelming, overriding emotion triggered by an event that occurred early in life that leads the character to interpret and perceive the world in a unique and specific way. The character gained this perspective in childhood, and it has been reinforced by significant events as he or she has aged, thereby shaping his or her approach to the world as a whole. If we were examining the psychology of a real flesh and blood person, we'd find a complex series of events that led to his or her worldview. But we're going to simplify slightly here, and while staying true to human nature, and start with a single formative experience and the emotion that resulted from it. Remember, this is a tool for creating character. We look at the base human emotion in terms of fears or needs. And here's a few commonly used ones. Let's take a look at fears first. These are just a sampling of them. Fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of being alone, fear of intimacy, fear of disappointing others, fear of betrayal, making mistakes, being invisible, not being understood, and so on and so forth. Conversely, there are need-based base human emotions. Need to nurture, need to be right, be the best, need for intimacy, companionship, connection, approval, validation, need to be understood, recognized, important, need to matter, need to be accepted, need to rescue. And these are just some examples of limitless possible base human emotions, and you'll come up with your own as you do this work. Look how similar fears and needs can be. They walk hand in hand with one another. For example, fear of failure is close to need to be successful. Fear of not being heard is close to need to be heard. Fear of abandonment is close to need for connection, and the list goes on. Now, not every fear-based character will shy away, and not every need-based character will grasp. Some sometimes a behavior can seem to stand in direct opposition to an emotion, which makes for one heck of an interesting character. Science says that by the time we're around 6 or 7 years old, we've experienced almost every human emotion. Of course, as adults, we look back at some childhood events and resulting emotions and more than often giggle at the absurdity of it all. But those traumas weren't so funny when we were experiencing them at that tender age. At age 4, I wept with shoulder-heaving sobs when I discovered I had lost my miniature baby doll in the sand. She had been my responsibility. I loved her. She was gone forever. I had failed horribly. Funny now, not so funny then. It made an impact on me. So, for now, we're looking for an event around age 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, very early on, that had a strong enough impact to leave an emotional impression. This emotional impression is what we'll refer to as the base human emotion. And I'm skipping a little here because it's all about the character Jonathan I described in the book. These interpretations, perceptions, and choices of the child create a domino effect where one thing leads to another. So think of the base human emotion like an emotional thread that runs throughout your character's life. People like to debate whether it was really a choice by the child, something he was taught, or something he experienced because of the action of others. It could be either one or all three, but for the sake of our exploration, what's important is that the base human emotion be identified and incorporated. In building your characters, I don't want you to use your own memories. We're going to create unique memories specific to your character. But for a millisecond, for the sake of example, let's look at our own lives. What's the earliest memory you can recall? The first one that pops into your head from an early age until around age 7 or so. It doesn't have to be hugely significant, doesn't have to be outwardly tragic. Sometimes these memories are emotionally heavy and sometimes not. Just the first one that pops into your head. Close your eyes, think about it for a second, give it a whirl. Now, if you think about it, that memory came in a flash, so to speak. Maybe it came complete with details about where you were in a room, what you wore, who was there with you, what was said, and maybe even what you smelled, tasted, or felt. Now, take another minute and think about the emotions surrounding the event. How were you feeling in this situation? Is there something about that feeling or emotion that influences or has an impact on your life today? Does that event from the past have some relevance in your life now? If you said no, think about it again. The reason you remember this early event in your life, often with specific details, is that you stored it in your memory banks because it had emotions surrounding it. If I asked you to remember what happened last August 31st, you probably wouldn't remember, unless it was your birthday or a day that had some powerful emotional significance to you. We store memories and events in our brains in terms of what we experience with our senses, what we see, touch, hear, smell, taste. These memories are stored because the event has emotional significance to us at the time. The emotion behind this event is the reason we're able to recall the event in detail and are able to feel the emotion when we remember it. Now, I'll just stop there unless you want me to go on with an example that I give later.
Let's hear the example.
Let's talk through an example of how this might play out in a person's life. Let's look at a woman named Joanna. To the world, Joanna is a fun-loving, sharp-witted lady. She is extremely well-educated, engagingly attractive, adored by men, and seems not to have a care in the world. Joanna is very possibly a creative genius. She paints masterfully, writes screenplays effortlessly. She plays several musical instruments and has a stunning voice. There isn't a fine wine she hasn't tried. Although she never talks about her past, rumor has it that Joanna was born into a wealthy, blue-blooded family in New York. That seems like a good explanation for all the opportunities she's had, although I know plenty of people who were born into great wealth and squandered it or partied it away. I know a guy who had a full scholarship to Stanford, is now a drug addict and homeless. The truth about Joanna is that she never knew her father, nor did her mother. She grew up as JoJo and was raised by a single mom in a rundown trailer park in Florida. In her early years, she would tell you she never owned a single piece of clothing that someone else hadn't owned first. Her shoes never fit. More than once, she and her mother ate out of trash cans. Now, did she become successful due to sheer will and determination? Where does that come from? What makes people tick? What compels one person to excel, to overcome all kinds of adversity, while another stays stuck in abject misery? The path you choose is the journey you take. A child's early perception of the world is crucial. The unique interpretation, judgment, or perception of events and circumstances causes the child to respond in a certain way. From that unique outlook, the child makes a choice to act upon the world in a certain way. Joanna made her choice. Joanna remembers the first day of first grade as one of the most horrific of her young life. The other kids made fun of her, too big for her clothes. One little boy laughed as he told the rest of the class that she smelled stinky. No one wanted to sit near her. No one would have lunch with her. No one played with her. She was alone and ostracized in school, so she would occupy herself by drawing and sketching. She threw herself into schoolwork and excelled in it. She began to want more, to know more, to fly higher than her classmates, so that she would never, ever be made fun of again, and she succeeded. Joanna ended up doing so well in school that she had her pick of the best colleges, complete with full scholarships. She chose to act upon the world in a certain way. She chose her path. And as a writer, if we start with this is not in the book, I'm just talking.
Right.
As a writer, if we start with the base human emotion and what caused that character to have a unique outlook into the world, you'll start to realize all of the little nuances of behavior. There's also a section in the book called Emotion with Detail, and that is indeed the section that we let our imaginations fly and create these emotionally pertinent moments of the character. But we always start with the base human emotion.
Now, the details of that childhood event aren't usually in the script, correct?
They're quite likely never in the script, exactly.
So it's up to the actor to make them up.
Exactly. That's why every actor that does a role, the same role, 5 different actors should do it 5 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Now, when you're going through this technique with an actor, let's say a A-list actor, and who's working on a big project, do they ever go back to the screenwriter and sort of confirm their ideas with what the screenwriter had in mind?
If the script has big gaping holes in it, sometimes, but really the actor's work is kind of private. And because we start with the words on the page as an actor and the behavior that the writer has so beautifully given us, we don't really, unless there's a huge question, we don't really have to share with the screenwriter the process of how we got to where we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're listening to Writers' Voices with Monica and Caroline, and our guest today is Warner Loughlin, author of the Warner Loughlin Technique. So, Warner, let's go back to how this book came to be and why you decided to create a book and what your process in getting it down on paper was like. Did you already have a lot of this written out for your students, or did you start from scratch in creating the book?
In creating the book, I really started from scratch, and it was, I know all the writers out there listening, what a process. I had no idea. So I would begin writing and then have to go on set for a movie, so that's, months and months of delayed, and then my coaching and teaching schedule would get in the way, and I'd come back to it, and I'd read it, and I'd go, oh, this is horrible. This doesn't even make sense to me. What? So there were fits and stops and starts and pulling of hair and gnashing of teeth to try to explain it on the page rather than show it by example in the coaching room, for instance, or to show it by example to an actor when we're on set. So putting it down was a struggle for me.
What kept you going?
Knowing that I had to get this technique out there, I wanted actors to know you don't have to suffer. Be a creative artist without torturing yourself, and that was a driving force for me.
So you were on a mission.
I was on a mission, yeah.
So, how long did you spend writing the book?
It's hard to say because there were so many reiterations of it. I first began it like a conversation with another actor, and I gave it to some actor friends, and they're like, no. Then it occurred to me, just talk to the reader, as if you're trying to teach someone who's never encountered the technique. Take them just from the beginning and sit there with them and explain it to them. And questions would come up in my mind, like I would imagine an actor would ask me, "Oh, what about this?" And then I would write that down.
But then, as you did that, did you then have to go back and sort of rearrange it to get it into a coherent order?
Indeed, I did. Several times. I'm like, this does not go here. It needs to go there. I think the hardest maybe not the hardest, but a difficult part of writing is you want to try not to edit as you write. I think it's important just to write. No matter what, even if you think, oh, this is not good, just keep writing, and you'll eventually get to something that is good.
Now, it sounds like you knew from a pretty young age that you wanted to be an actor.
Indeed.
And what about a writer? Was that always in the back of your mind, too?
Indeed. It always has been, I think. I mean, write a novel soon.
Well, Warner, tell us a little bit about your path from, you grew up in a small town in North Carolina?
Population 2,235. The nearest town is Murphy, North Carolina. The nearest town is Atlanta, which is 2.5 hours away, or Asheville, which is 2+ hours away. So we were nestled in a little valley in the mountains, so to speak, and there weren't plays in our town. The movie theater, the Hen Theater, which is still there, has a neon chicken on the mark.
Oh, so the Hen, Hen. Okay.
Okay, great.
It's Henn. Yeah, they're a lovely family. They've had the theater for years. But there were no... becoming an actress in that tiny town was not very likely, I don't think. But luckily I had wonderful parents who basically raised me to believe you can be anything you want to be. If you can read it, you can learn it.
And so how did you get to Oxford, to studying Shakespeare at Oxford?
Just applied. It was just my junior year in college. My mother set me down and said, "Okay, you're going to apply. You're going to apply to all the Ivy Leagues. You're going to apply everywhere in the world for early decision and all of that." And so I applied everywhere. I was kind of a bookworm. I think I was afraid not to make an A.
Is that your base human emotion?
It might be. I don't know.
Fear of not getting an A.
I don't think I just didn't want to disappoint my parents, I think, most of all, because they were just good people. But, yeah, I studied hard. I don't think I'm smarter than anybody else. I think I just studied more.
So now Oxford's in England, right?
It is, and I was much too young to be there.
I
graduated high school at 17. I was kind of a year younger than most people in my grade, and I went directly over there and first of all, I didn't understand a word anybody said.
You weren't familiar with the accent.
Right, and coming from let's just say southern town, these people were not speaking the way people I know spoke. So.
Now, you don't sound real southern now. Did you used to have a more southern accent yourself?
I used to talk like this.
Yep.
They work that out of you when you're an actor.
I bet.
It comes back, yeah.
So, did you stay there a year and then transfer?
I did not. I stayed there for. Oh goodness! I left school right after we had exams. There would be like sometimes 5 people in class, and you would discuss 3 novels. But I left right after exams and took a train down to Nice, right on the coast of France. There.
I've been there.
Oh, isn't it beautiful?
It is. And I went to Nice with my niece.
Ah, that's great. Well, you know how they have private beaches there and public beaches? I would, and here I am 17 years old. How silly to do this, but I would literally sleep on the public beach, and the waiters from the private beach would give me food. I was just,
oh my goodness.
I didn't know if I wanted to go back to school. I didn't know if I wanted to backpack around Europe, but I lost all my money. My money was stolen.
Oh my.
So I got a job in this little bed and breakfast. I didn't know how to cook, but it was making croissants and delivering coffee to the guests and whatnot. So, and cleaning the rooms. And
now, was the owner a British woman by any chance?
It was a gentleman who was quite nice to
because I stayed at a bed and breakfast in Nice that was owned by a really lovely British woman.
Oh, isn't that?
I know.
Oh, that would have been, oh man, that would have been a small world for sure.
Wouldn't that be a small world?
Yeah.
But I was afraid that I was flunking out.
Mm.
And so I stayed in Nice. Oh, my poor parents. Then I thought, oh, no, I got to go. I got to go to school. I got to go to school at least somewhere. And so I took a train to Paris, and I when I look back, I can't believe how I survived. Some of the things I did as a kid. But I walked into the embassy in Paris and said, "Hi, I'm American, and I have a quarter."
Oh, my goodness. Had you not tried to contact your parents to send you money?
No, isn't that? Because I didn't want them to know I've left school.
Oh, my goodness. And you were 17.
Oh, they were a horrible child, right?
Oh, no, it's just, I'm afraid for you even now.
They were great, though. They're like, well, you have to go to school. Yes, I know. So,
wow.
So I.
Now, how did you actually do on your exams? Did you ever?
Okay, this is the horrible thing. They came back. They transferred as a B.
Oh. Do you ever wish you had stayed at Oxford?
No. Not really. A great time at Carolina. That's a heck of a great school that truly gave me a lot. All of the psychology that is present in my technique definitively came from lots that I learned in Chapel Hill. It was a great school.
I want to ask you a little bit about the Shakespearean actors. What techniques do they use?
All different kinds. Learning Shakespeare is a whole different beast. It's like, comedy acting is also different than drama acting. Mm-hmm. I have a comedy technique. The book that's just out now is for drama, but Shakespeare's a whole different, intriguing little ball game there, which I find gloriously fun. We don't see enough of it out there, I don't think.
Yeah, I love watching really good Shakespeare, and I have seen a couple of plays that had actors from the Royal Shakespeare Company.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. It's like, even though the language is so archaic, somehow you understand what every word means just by the way that they act, even if you don't understand the words.
I've seen actors who didn't understand the words, doing Shakespeare, and that's kind of an impossible task.
Yes, yeah, it would be. It would be. So, is your comedy technique your next book?
I think so. Yes.
Uh-huh. So, what year did you start working on this book?
Ooh. Probably 2001, and there were years that I just left it alone.
Oh, yeah. We've talked to other writers that have done that. And was there a point in time where you decided, okay, now I'm just going to really focus on this?
The problem that I had was focusing on it and continuing to work.
Mm.
So I found that it helped me if I blocked out times And also, interestingly enough, I found that there were times during the day where nothing would come. For some people, I think writing in the morning is fruitful for them. For me, oddly enough, it was between the hours of 1 and 4 in the afternoon. I don't know why.
Wow.
I think it's just because of, how your body clock is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And what your responsibilities are.
Yes, exactly. So I thought, I should get up in the morning and write. And I would do it and just struggle and struggle. And one day I had only 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. to write. And it just came pouring out. And I went, well, that's interesting. So I would literally try to block out those hours that were most productive and set a timer. And if I didn't have a whole lot between those hours, then okay.
So you didn't have a goal of a certain number of words per day or anything like that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Just get it out. It was really a time issue.
And do you write on computer or is first draft longhand?
Computer.
Computer.
Computer, yeah.
Yeah. And did you find as you were creating, now the technique has a certain structure.
Exactly.
Was that all completely sort of set prior to writing the book, or did part of the structure come out of the writing process?
That's such a good question. I've been teaching it for so many years that the structure was already there. Mm-hmm. Just getting it on the page was in a logical manner for someone who has never heard of it before was the issue. Like you were saying, sometimes it would get jumbled. Like I would have a thought, and my thought would veer off to the right.
And you use a part of a script as an example, a running example throughout the book. How did you select that? And was it something that you actually wrote, or did you have to get permission from the script writer?
I actually wrote the scene, but I wrote it because it's a fairly bad scene.
By which you mean?
I did it because there's not much there.
Ah.
So if an actor can feel this character when there is so not much in that scene to go off of, then I think the actor's a step ahead.
Now, generally, would you use the entire script and not just a single scene to build on to apply the technique?
Exactly.
Okay.
Certain parts of the technique you're only going to use. Well, behaviorally, you're able to just extract certain scenes from the book, since where the way the character deals with his mother is going to be quite different than the way he deals with his boss or coworker or lover or that thing. So you might want to take the howls of behavior from several different scenes, but really the whole screenplay gives us all kinds of delicious little clues that the writer has painstakingly and lovingly given us.
How many times would you say that an actor would need to read the script in order to apply your technique?
Every actor's different. I know some actors who read it over and over and over again. Really, when you start out as an actor with your screenplay, you want to read it very objectively. And when you do so, you're going to find that you'll pick up many more clues rather than trying to instantly put yourself in this character's position. But some people, read it again and again and again and again because they see different things every time they read it.
Now, Warner, one thing we haven't really emphasized is, I did mention up at the top that you were a coach to the stars. And some of the stars some of the actors you've worked with are Amy Adams, Ryan Reynolds, Kira Sedgwick, and countless other award-winning actors and actresses. And I have a quote from Ryan Reynolds saying, "I've been working with Warner Loughlin for years. Not only has she helped me become a better actor, but she's also helped me truly enjoy this work in ways I never imagined."
I love him.
And yeah, I think I saw something in here about having slept with him 27 times.
My husband will kill me because right? No, really, if you're listening, it's a joke. It's a joke. I could be Ryan's mother, okay? I'm old enough to be his mother.
Well,
he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. We were working on Buried, the movie Buried. If you haven't seen it, it's a little brutal, but go see it because Ryan is unbelievably strong in this movie. Just go see it. Some of his best work. Anyway, we were in Barcelona working on a soundstage as we were shooting, and upstairs they had this green room, for lack of a better word, but it was where Ryan and I would go and do our work and take meals and rest in between shooting. And there were two couches in that room, very far apart from each other, okay? But Ryan would perch on one, I would perch on the other during our downtime, and we'd, listen to music or work on our computers or work on the character or whatnot. But it was so exhausting that almost every afternoon we would just, lay down on the couch and take a nap. Him on his couch, me on my couch. But I used to tease my husband that, yes, I slept with Ryan Reynolds 27 times. I hope that never gets out there because, believe me, I'm old enough to be his mother, okay?
Well, the fact that you helped him become a better actor is one thing, but also helping him truly enjoy his work in ways he never imagined. I mean, that, to me, that is the plum. Because
Ryan is one of the kindest, most beautiful souls you'll ever meet. He really is that guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you go on set with your clients?
Quite often.
Wow.
I love going on set.
So tell me why they would want you to be there. What are you adding on a day-to-day basis? I don't mean that critically in any way.
No, I know you didn't at all.
Okay.
It's a great question. When I'm on set, I've got my eyes on you and just you. So I'm aware of every little nuance. I know when you might be slightly missing a moment, or you need maybe a little help in a certain moment, or to reconnect with the character, or to make this moment stronger, or any number of things. A director, and I'm very careful on set not to step on the director's toes. I think that's hugely important. I've seen coaches do it, and it's just an ugly sight. You're not the director. You're there to help your actor, and anything you can do to help your actor is what your job is. But sometimes directors actually hire me because a director is involved in the whole of it. They're concerned with the shot. They're concerned with the other actors in the scene. They're concerned with so much that sometimes they hire me to make the acting stronger because they're dealing with other things. And sometimes the actor hires me just to keep them on their toes and strong in the role. And sometimes producers hire me, studios hire me, so it depends.
The one of these questions here, the misconception of the actor as diva. What does that mean?
I don't work with divas just because life's too short. But there are a lot of times on set where it may look like an actress is being demanding. Think about it. That actress has been on her feet for 14 hours. Of low blood sugar and need that orange juice. It's not just demanding it. There are, when you're working multiple weeks on end that hard every day, there are just things you need as a human being. You need somebody to pick up your dry cleaning. You need any number of things.
Yeah.
Maybe to the outside world, it can look like, oh, aren't they just precious?
Now, Warner, we have time for like one more question, and I'm curious, when you go to see a movie that you worked on, with the actor, are you able to see it the way everyone else sees it, sort of just get lost in the story, or are you still focused on that actor and how things worked?
I can only enjoy it the second time I see it.
Ah.
First time I see it, I am watching. Yes.
Yeah.
I bet.
And I'm going, why did they take that take? I can't believe they took that take. Why didn't they take this other take?
Wow. So you're probably going to work on a book about the comedy technique. You dropped a hint about writing a novel. Do you think you'll ever make a switch to being a full-time writer?
I don't know. I find it awfully fun.
But it sounds like you really enjoy the coaching too.
I do immensely. Yeah. It feeds my heart.
Wow.
And you meet so many interesting people that way too.
Wow. From all over the world, yes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us today on Writers' Voices. We've really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed being here.
Yeah. And, Mom, do you have a closing quote for us?
Yeah, I took it out of her book here, in the chapter Base Human Emotion. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. And watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Wow. And that was written by Frank Outlaw.
You know, I will say, Warner, that reading your book almost makes me want to be an actor.
Yeah, I know, it does.
I love that.
And, you know, because I can remember, like, back in junior high, being in a play and just getting so caught up in the character that I would do things that weren't even in the script because that's what the character would do. Does that ever happen to people who are
into it,
have done your technique?
It does indeed, yes.
And are directors okay with that?
Yeah, sometimes.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we'll see you all next week on Writers' Voices.